Welcome to the General Ledger lesson on updating the GL with accounting activity. I'm currently in the General Ledger Center, and what I have done is I've told the General Ledger that I want to work on the period of January. Now usually you want to keep your General Ledger up to date at least on a month-to-month basis, but you can update the General Ledger as often as you want with accounting activity from accounts receivable, accounts payable, payroll, and even manual entries that you did directly in the checkbook. Now, before I actually run an update, I'm going to take a quick trip back over to accounts payable to show you the type of accounting activity that the accounts payable generates. So if I wanted to know what's going to go to the General Ledger for any particular date range, I can come into accounts payable, accounting journal, select the date range of activity that I want to look at or print out. I'm going to preview the detail of this activity, and when I click print, it will preview it onto the screen for me. So this is the accounting activity that AP generated for this date range. So I can print this out or just keep it in here, refer to it later on, because you can always problem solve your accounting at the subsystem level. In other words, your AR, your AP, and payroll can be problem solved on those levels before any of the accounting information hits the GL. And even afterwards you have recourse because everything goes into the General Ledger in batches. So as I look at this accounting journal, this shows me all the debit and credit activity that the program generated for me during that time period. So you will see these debit and credit totals come into the General Ledger from the accounts payable, and that's what we're going to do right now. So I'm going to exit out of this screen and this little window too. Then I'm going to hotkey back over to General Ledger, and we're going to run an update. So when I click on update on the menu bar, I select GL updates. Now this date range that you're seeing here represents the date range for the period that you selected on the main General Ledger screen. You can do this for any date range. You don't have to get out of this window and select the period here. But it's always a good reminder that you're working in whatever period you've selected. Now, update options, very important. Some people like to see every single transaction flow through to the General Ledger, and some people just want a summary of those transactions. In other words, just account debit and credit totals running through, because they always have those journals on the AR, AP, and payroll side for backup anyway. So it's a personal preference. Now, in normal situations, you would want to say that you want to update the General Ledger with AR, AP, and payroll activity for the given date range. What COBRA will do is go out to each of those subsystems and look for unposted accounting activity. In other words, accounting activity that hasn't already hit the General Ledger. So if you had to go back to a period and enter another invoice or record another payment under a previous month, then you can come in here and say, well, I want to update the GL again, and it will know just to grab that new accounting activity. And just a note about the adjust inventory option. Unless you are actually running COBRA as an inventory system, you do not want to use this feature. You can find out more about it in the help system by typing in adjust inventory and reading up on the topic about how to run inventory through to the General Ledger. Now, even though I've selected 3 different update sources, COBRA will actually create 3 different batches, one for each of the updates. So what I'm going to do is, just to show you how a single update looks, I'm just going to select accounts payable. Then when I select the update by clicking on it, what it does is goes out to the accounts payable in this case, finds the unposted AP activity, creates a batch, and posts it. And you can see the batch number it's giving you right on screen here that we can refer to then, because everything runs through to the General Ledger in some sort of a batch. So it updated my account activity and my account balances. So now let's take a look at what happened here. First of all, the batch is part of my batch list in my batches tab. Very important because these are all posted batches. So if I want to define this batch real quickly, I can scroll over to the description, or I can move this divider line over a little bit. So you can always get at batch activity real easily. Double click on the batch and the entry list to get to the detail. So here's all the detail for that batch that we imported. And then if I click to the end of it by hitting my end key, I can see those debit and credit totals that came through. So if I want to take another look at things and how it affected my general ledger, if I go into the period TB tab and I double click on, say, my checkbook account, I can then take a look at it, and at the upper right I can see broken out month by month everything that has flowed through to that account. Now when I want to look at a single period like January, for example, I can double click on that period and get to all of its detail. Okay, so basically what makes up this number in the current period to date is all the activity that flowed through to that account. And you can verify that by looking at the net amount at the very lower right of the screen. That should be the same amount as what you see in the current period to date. Now when you look at the detail itself, you can see the source of all the detail. So as you begin using this, you can start problem solving even within the general ledger after everything has hit the general ledger, because here you have a lot of information at your fingertips to help you problem solve. The source, there's one of 5 different sources that you can notice in here. GL, which means that this was a batch posted directly in the general ledger as journal entries. AP, AR, PR for payroll, and CB for checkbook. So you can always know where the accounting activity came from so that you can problem solve back. And in this case, if I wanted to know more about the information that flowed through in this period, I can go right back to the batch because I have my batch number here. So you begin using this, you start using all these tools to your benefit, and you might find that this is actually a very simple program to problem solve. And you can also review the lesson on troubleshooting your GL if you want more information on problem solving. This ends the lesson on updating the GL with accounting activity.